sex, and the LGBTQ plus movement. And what does the plus mean? Coming up next on Pastor Bob's Coffee Break. It's our mug of the year, Sola Scriptura, back to the basics. It's also a poster, a big one, a small one. It's a t-shirt, Sola Scriptura, the Bible only. That's what that means. And of course, we've been talking about the Bible this month, talking about fact checkers. And I am a fact checker with the right fact checking with the Bible. And of course, we have our metal dude as a fact checker as well, my fact checker, in a t-shirt. So we have the coolest stuff, besides the coolest coffee. HEADBANGERS BREW, our very own coffee in whole bean ground, decaf, K-cups, a myriad of opportunities. There you go, right there. All at wearemetalwearefamily.com. So here's the question for today. Dear Pastor Bob, I watched your podcast today, yesterday now, about sex and commitment among Christian men and women. I am male, Christian, and gay. I married my husband 3.5 years ago. We've been in a very loving and monogamous relationship since then. What would you say to the LGBT community? I realize this is a hot and a touchy subject. And Christians have gone a long ways in developing and legitimizing their hatred for specific people, specifically the gay community. And I'm not an expert. I don't want to come across as an expert. But I've sure observed a lot. I've sure talked to a lot of people. I've done a lot of counseling. I've seen a lot of things. And I continue to read on the movement as well. I believe the Bible defines relationships. And I believe the Bible has specific things to say about the subject of homosexuality. And my views may match yours and they may not. But that's for another podcast and we'll get to that. But I want to answer this question specifically. And I appreciate it also if you would leave your comments to this question in particular. No hate comments. Don't go off on tangents with it. But to this question. So let's define things. LGBTQ plus. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or sometimes it means questioning, plus. What does plus mean? Well, that's where it gets a little more difficult. It's the LGBTQQIAA movement. That's a mouthful. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, transsexual, two-spirit, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, ally. And of course, I think we're adding to that list all the time, depending on what you've decided your pronoun is. And frankly, folks, it's getting a little confusing. But I want to talk about the movement, because honestly, that's my biggest concern. And no matter how you feel about gay versus straight, there are things that are moral, things that are biblical, things that are important and things that are foundational to relationships. And my biggest problem with the LGBTQ movement is that it asks us to give approval to sexual practices as well. That's a difficult thing. And when you see what the sexual practices are, and when people are just, and maybe not knowing, joining a movement and the culture that kind of gets them motivated and captures their heart and their sexuality and gets them involved, is not healthy. So I want to talk mostly about promiscuity among gay men. And this is from the Journal of Sex Research, definitely not a Christian journal. It's not biased. If it's biased in anything, it's biased for legitimizing the movement. But when polling all of these people, all these gay men, they found out that 83% of them, 83%, have had sex with 50 or more partners in their lifetime. Now that's a lot of sexual partners. But that's not the most alarming. 43%, which is almost half, 43% estimated that they had sex with 500 or more partners. It gets worse. 28%, that's about a third, almost a third, have had sex with over 1,000 partners. 1,000 partners. Yeah, you heard me right. And 79%, over half of those sexual partners were strangers. 79% said over half of them were strangers. 70% said over half of their sexual partners were one-night stands. They only had sex with that person once. 70%. When the survey concentrated on just older gay men, in fact, 2,583 of them, which is a pretty good study, the modal range, or the average range for the number of sexual partners ever, was between 101 and 500. That was the average in older gay men. Now, younger gay men are more sexually active. And 13% of those older gay men reported having had more than 1,000 lifetime sex partners. Kind of blows your mind. It blows my mind. And folks, when we look at the gay community, and I love people, can I just say that? I don't care your persuasion, your color, your age, whatever it might be. I love people, and I feel like God's given me that love, and my heart just goes out. And my heart goes out to the gay community. I think from the Christian community, many times they've been mistreated. They've been rejected. They hate Christianity as a result, and we have that on our shoulders. We need to do something about it. But folks, this is such a serious problem. And if I'm asked to legitimize a movement, then I'm also asked to legitimize its morality. That's a big deal. But let's talk about this last part of the question. This person said, I'm a Christian, I'm gay, and I've been married for, I think they said 3.5 years, in a very monogamous relationship. Well, no matter what you think about that, should homosexual people get married? Is it legitimized? Can you really have a great monogamous relationship? The statistics are not in their favor, sadly. Among married gay couples, only 4.5% reported a monogamous relationship where they only had sex with each other. 4.5%. 95.5% of married gay couples reported having sex with outside people as well. That's not a marriage. No matter what you think of marriage, that doesn't qualify, I don't think, for marriage. Not if marriage isn't exclusive, which it's supposed to be. And folks, there is a loving relationship that many people have together. It's hard to define love. Love between couples, love between friends, love between families. They hit us at our core. And I'm not saying that one isn't legitimate and the other one is. I'm not saying what you feel is nothing and what you feel doesn't count. I'm not saying any of those things. What I am saying is we have some problems here. Some problems that need to be fixed. And the movement itself is not something I could endorse. If this was a heterosexual movement and you asked me to endorse it as a heterosexual movement, I would say, of course I can't. Not picking on any particular sexual persuasion here, but this is really bad. Let's open up the scriptures to Romans chapter 6, verses 16 through 18. And I want to read it just straight away from the Message commentary today. And it says, "So, since we're out from under the old tyranny, does that mean we can live any old way we want? Since we're free in the freedom of God, can we do anything that comes to mind? Hardly. You know well enough from your own experience that there are some acts of so-called freedom that destroy freedom. Offer yourselves to sin, for instance, and it's your last free act. In other words, you're no longer free. That puts you in bondage. But offer yourselves to the ways of God, and the freedom never quits." See, that's where true freedom is, and that's where true freedom grows. All your lives, you've let sin in, and you've let it tell you what to do. But thank God you've started listening to a new master, one whose commands set you free to live openly in his freedom, not yours. You say, "Well, Pastor Bob, I'm free to do this and I'm free to do that." And the movement would say, "Don't tell me how to live my life. I'm free to live it the way I want because I have these special feelings and I've defined myself and I have a new pronoun and I'm free to do that." No, you're not. Not any more than I am. You see, because every time you take your freedom that God gave you and you sin with it, you put it in another box, then all of a sudden you're in bondage again. And it says, does that mean you can live any way you want? Since we're free in the freedom of God, can we do anything that comes to mind? And he says, hardly. You know well enough from your own experience that there are some acts of so-called freedom that destroy freedom. Offer yourself to sin, it's your last free act, because sin takes you on a different path, and it's not freedom. But offer yourself to the ways of God, and the freedom never quits. Well, there's so much we could say, Some of you that are watching this podcast are disappointed that I'm not talking about homosexuals in particular. I'm talking about a movement. We'll get to the other things too. But folks, I want us to think about these movements. Not just the gay movement. Heterosexuals have their own problems. That's why I started with that yesterday. Because, you see, heterosexuals are also very guilty of some of the same things. Not to the same extreme, by any means, but guilty of the same things, the same mindset, the same lust of the flesh. And folks, when God creates true love, when he legitimizes your love, when that happens, it becomes monogamous because it's deeper than anything else. And when we look at God and we ask God to bless what we have, God says, yes, it's holy, it's good, it's what I gave you. Here's my blessings. Anyway, sola scriptura. What does the Bible say? And we'll be talking about that much more as the days and the weeks go on. Folks, don't forget you are blessed. So go and be a blessing.